a beloved place to be at the masjid, and also with the brothers from Piscataway community. So many good people and so much good work coming out of this community. So today it's a little different, obviously, the topic, and so I want to get into this in terms of what I am trying to do, and what, not just me, there's so many other Muslims who are actively pursuing something very special. So the slide presentation is not that big. I didn't include all these majestic mosques and beautiful decor and display of Islamic art and calligraphy. But what I want to do is I want to give you the philosophy of what happens with people and when a community or Islam or Muslim go into another part of the world. So I want to give you a big bird's eye view kind of picture to kind of realize and recognize where we are in terms of a community and in terms of connecting the message, right? Connecting the message of Islam, connecting the message to humanity. And that is done. And many people, they tend to think that when you come across something like where you have interfaith discussions and dialogues, we talk about God. We talk about Holy Book, we talk about scriptures, we talk about how we are similar. But when parents meet, right, at the school, public school, or when parents meet, or co-workers meet, right, when you see non-Muslims, who are not part of the masjid community, you recognize that the field, right, the view, the basic gist of things when you're looking at, it's not religion-centered, right? It's not God-centered. Your discussion are going to be secular, right? Your talks, your interactions are going to be on things that are going to be secular, meaning they don't have a religious meaning. Secular here doesn't mean it's a neutral thing. It doesn't mean it's a negative thing, right? So we understand when our kids go to public school, they will deal with subjects that are of secular in nature. Again, secular doesn't mean something haram or something halal, but something what we call in Islam as mubah, right? Something that is okay, you put clothes on, it doesn't have a religious meaning in terms of, being, showing the modesty, being moderate, not, wasting money and all these other things, but it doesn't have, like, if you put this type of clothes on, you will receive such and such barakah from God, just because you got these clothes. No, the meaning is attached, and with intention, obviously, we derive a meaning that is closer to God. But what I want to do is, so I want to talk about this. Okay, next one. So here's what I want to talk about, right? And this might be a little shocking to people, but that's okay. We need to wake up, right? So the devil's game, right? And that's what I want to talk about. I can see. So I want to talk about that story. And so next slide, inshallah. Right. So this talks about a happy villagers or a happy community. And you could take a look at it as Muslim community, and everybody's happy in that community. And 1400 years of history, you could look at it from this perspective. And I don't want to paint a rosy picture, but I want to give you an idea. And you could really appreciate that picture on the right side, lower right. The wife is on the tracks and the guy is like, right? So he has it all planned it out. Next one. Life was beautiful. Life was perfect. Right? They had beautiful speech, beautiful character, beautiful poetry. These people who were perfect, basically. Beautiful songs, beautiful work, beautiful writing, beautiful art, beautiful clothing. Right? This Islamic civilization, Muslims, food, beautiful homes. They looked into beauty. Carpets. We have all this, right, as a heritage that we have actually, as a legacy that we have inherited. Decor, their houses, their chandeliers, their business, their actions, architecture, you name it, everything was beautiful. When you saw a mosque that was built 200 years ago, 300 years ago, 1,000 years ago, you thought it was beautiful. It could be simplistic as, simply plain, rectangular, but if you saw the mosque today, you would say it's a beautiful mosque. Or a house of a Muslim, or I was in Damascus, and in Morocco it's the same deal, and many of the Muslim community. You will find, if you walk through the back of the street, you'll see the most beautiful item before you enter the house is the gate itself. It's the door itself. And what you'll see, I did this for Damascus. I used to walk maybe a mile or two between the bus stop and my teacher's house. And I used to count, because I was a foreigner, they probably didn't realize, but I looked into it, and I used to listen to how many people would play the Quran. And it was, the Maidan was the place, that was the name within Damascus. And it was always like 30 people playing the Quran. You would hear Saad al-Ghamdi, you would hear Sheikh Abdul Basit, you would hear, and then maybe 3 or 4 people playing music. That was the ratio that I remember, And we should make dua for the people of Syria, people of Sham, who are struggling, and we know the crisis. But that's one thing I remember. The other thing I remembered was every door that was in the alley or the street, it was always different. There was something unique about the artistic, beautiful style that they had decorated their doors. I mean, it was made mostly of metal or woodwork, but every door was different. They didn't have doors like how we have it, ready-made, kind of put them out there, and everybody's door is kind of the same. Because they thought that it wasn't a thing of a beauty. You wanted to beautify how you lived, and you wanted to show that you have come to your door, and it's a beautiful thing, right? So you would see the door, it was different. It wasn't like you would confuse the door of the neighbor with this door, So that was one of the things that stood out. So I wanted to reference that, and you still see that somewhat. So the devil came, and this is obviously a make-believe story. The devil came and he said to this generation of people, and he whispered to them, "Your ancestors were great artisans and artists and makers of beautiful calligraphy and art. Revere their work by decorating your homes and mosques, but with replica art." Right? They were great people. How could you compete with them or compare in terms of their beauty? So what could you do? You do little things. How do you do it? You just like Nuh alayhi salam, right? Remember the story of Aad was Waddan wala Su'an wala Yaghutha wa Ya'uqa wa Nasra. Those 5 people were the good people, and they were told to make statues, right? Just so you remember them in their replica, just similar to that. So we started to build. Next slide, inshallah. Muslims, what happened with our culture, the generation before, maybe I would say a couple of them, all the stuff from factory start coming out. And our mosques and our homes got bombarded with plastic stuff. Who doesn't have the one with Ayatul Kursi on it and Allahu la ilaha, right? From gold and black plates. Who doesn't have it? Raise your hand. Right? Who doesn't have the word Allah and Muhammad hanging in their car sometime, right? And that plastic stuff that came out. And then who doesn't have like the entire Quran on a page or something like, or the Surah Yasin and things like that. They start coming out and they start taking out all these carpets. They would come out. They were all prints, right? And the master calligrapher, the artist who did that, by the way, do you think he got ever paid for that work? Royalty fees? Huh? Do you think the art went beyond this person? So that's what started to happen. Oh, $5, wow, mashallah. And then you go and what? This work is for $500? I'm just saying, right? And then people will be like, oh, I'll rather go for this. And so before we recognize this is the problem started to create. So second generation, the devil whispered to us, how dare you try to mimic masters, artists? Learn medicine, science, engineering, accounting, right? All the beautiful stuff. And law, everything else is waste of time. Buy lots of factory-made art from China, but do that, right? And people learned that, and obviously there's a history and it's complicated, but I'm just making it very simplistic. And people went into this direction. And art, obviously, I'm somebody who taught at the Islamic school. I recently spoke with people all across, like speaking to them about, hey, where is like your art department or Islamic art? And they say, it's right next to gym and lunch in importance. Right? Whereas, we could see how important lunch is because it nourishes the body. What is art there for? Right? So that's the mindset that we developed over the years. And next one. What time am I supposed to start? 6:27. 7? Close. Okay, inshallah. And then the third generation, right after that, why do you do this? Go into these fields. It's not important. Well, what's the, right? And many people, and I'll mention it to you, and I'll try to tackle it too, but it's a lengthy subject, but I'll talk about it. They would say, oh, where's the art that the Prophet ﷺ created? right? And that's the third thing that I'm walking to. And so then they said, be simple. Adorning mosques and homes is a waste of time and money. That's the mindset that permeated the community. And that's where we are today. So it's a waste of time. Why put the carpets? Why don't, just pray on the floor? Take these carpets off, Why decorate the motifs and the floral pattern? Brother, there's so much money, it's so difficult. And to start thinking this way, thinking that this is some sort of religious obligation. Right? People think, and then you say, where is it in the Quran? Where is it in the Sunnah? Right? And I'll talk about these two. One particular ayah that we need to pay attention to in terms of Quran. قُلْ مَنْ حَرَّمَ زِينَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي قُلْ مَنْ حَرَّمَ زِينَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي أَخْرَجَ لِعِبَادِهِ وَالطَّيِّبَاتُ مِنَ الرِّزْقِ قُلْ هِيَ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا خَالِصَةً يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. In meaning, say to them, O Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who has made the things of beautification of this life haram? Meaning, God is actually daring people. Who has the audacity to make things that God has made, the things of beauty of this life, haram? Say to them, he doesn't simply leave it a question, but he says, say to these people that these are specifically for the believers in this life, and only, so the meaning would be, say to them that it is for this, in this life for the believers, and non-believers included, but he doesn't mention that in the verse, and khalisatan, and purely for the believers on the Day of Judgment, in the Qiyamah. So he says about the beautification and adornations and things of that nature. So after having said that, inshallah, let's move on to the next slide. So what happened? What happened after this? Villagers, right, the shiny, happy people that I showed you, the smiley, beautiful community. Villagers stopped beautifying homes and mosques and thought it was a waste of time and effort, right? Art is waste of time. That's what people say. Says, why do that? If you want to do it, just write the Qur'ans, right? But what is really, really, really ironic is that people don't know how to write the Qur'an. Most religious people can't write the Qur'an. And you say, oh, I know how to write in Urdu. Yes, you may say that, but you don't have any clue about how to write in Khat. It's a science in itself. It's very measured. It's very geometrical. It's very, patented. And most people, even religious people, can't write the Quran, right? So this is what's happening within our community. And most people don't even recognize. And if you ask what is the great legacy of Islam and Muslims, because Islam is not a person, obviously. So what is the great legacy of Muslims? What Islam enabled to produce them, right? Or how Islam influenced them? Show it to me. And if you say, and that's again going back to the secular non-Muslim community, you say, oh, we fast. Show me your fast. Oh, we pray 5 times a day. Show me your prayers. It's not with you. It's not hanging in your pocket, right? Oh, we go for Hajj. Where is your Hajj? Oh, I made Hajj 5 times. Where is it? I can't see Hajj on you, right? Oh, we give zakah. I can't see all that. You see, so these are religious obligations, not to be confused with people when they live their lives. They produce artifacts. They produce. And the way they connect with the world, it is seen in their living. It is seen on their walls. It is seen on their cars. It is seen in their marketplace. It's seen in their mosque or in their homes and everywhere else. So how they interact. So you would see the grand, beautiful adornations of Muslim community, right? The legacy is still with us, whether it's Cordoba, right, the mosque, right, that stands there, or the Umayyad Mosque in Damascus, or the Holy Lands, right, that we see, Palestine and other areas. So at this point, what we're talking about in our story is that villagers stopped beautifying homes and mosques. And this is going to be a little shocking, but that's okay, I need to. And everything became blah. Everything became like, just get it done. Just get it done, man. Just put, you need to put a mosque up, make it a Home Depot style, right? Cube, block, right? White stuff. And so there's not only that mentality affected their art, but it also affected their speech. Their speech became blah, just bland. Their character became blah. Their poetry became, why, waste time? Their songs, their work, their writing, their art, their clothing, right? Their food, because it's all black and white now, right? That's what happened to the clothing. Their homes, their mosques, their carpets, their decors, their chandeliers, their business, their actions, their architecture, right? Show me the great architecture of the Muslims influenced by Islamic art today, right? Most of the stuff that is built in Dubai, it's coming from America and Europe. If you know, the companies that I work for, DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, and we have companies that are submitting applications to build, all these projects. And these are the same companies that are in Dubai. These are the same companies that are in Abu Dhabi. These are the same companies that are in London, Hong Kong, and other Chicago and other areas. So it wasn't like we developed something and then we went in that direction. But all of the work, and next slide, inshallah, became just this, be simple, blah, be plain. And it went in one direction. And then the next slide. So if you look at our mosques and our homes today, there are exceptions always, obviously, right? You'll see the ceilings are missing, right? You look, just compare and I want to give you this picture. And I know people are like simplistic mindset and they say, oh, it has to be simple and beautiful. Yes, it is. True. You walk in a mosque in Karachi, in New Delhi, in Kabul, in Qahira, in Fez, in Andalus, in Kuala Lumpur, Muslim world, right? Majority dominant Muslim world. You walk in a mosque, I'll bet you this. Sort of a way of saying. You'll say, Allahumma aftah li abwaab rahmatik. Oh God, open the doors of your mercy for me. Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, Mashallah, Allahu la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyul qayyum. You continue to walk and you'll continue to say these statements, Yasin wal Quran al-Hakim. You could be the most sinful person on earth. As long as you have been raised in that society, you'll see these and you'll say these good words, good kalimat. You'll say that. You walk in a mosque in America, right? For most part, you'll say, where's the door? Right? You'll walk in a mosque in America and you say, oh, they misspelled welcome. Right? There's an E that's missing. Right? You walk in a mosque and then you'll say, society of, what is this? You can't make out the sign. You walk in a mosque and then you'll be like, well, where am I? This looks just like Marshall's shopping, right? Big, if it's a Home Depot style structure or a building, office space, right? So you say, where, the two places are confusing. But that's because what we've borrowed and what we have initiated and what we have lacked in terms of our styles and architecture and art and learning from that ability. So these are some of the pictures of what is missing and what is happening today. You remember this from earlier talk, right? The replica art that, it's all beautiful. Yes, subhanAllah, we don't criticize the word of Allah, obviously. But you have to look at the mentality. You have to look at the heart. If the heart is in the right place, why do you think Muslims, when they wrote the word of God, just think about it, the earlier Muslim generation, why do you think they put gold on top of the ayat? You say that was a waste of money. Right? They could have used anything else. Right? Couldn't they? That was a waste of money. But what do you think of the people and their heart? What do you think they were trying to showcase? What was their intention in their hearts that showed up on these beautification of these words? What do you think was that? They revered these words. That's one, right? Nobody would put gold on anything that is not revered. Right? You could think of it from the positive aspect too. Don't go into negative, right? Why complain about their hypocrisy maybe? Or their hearts they were just showcasing, they were just show off. That's a negative way of looking at somebody's intention. That might be good and pure. Right? And they might have thought, if somebody walks in and they're told this is gold, then they'll say subhanallah, but not just subhanallah, they'll be like, wow, mashallah, with that wording, right? Because that kind of gave them the experience of coming to the mosque. One of the beautiful things that we are lacking and we don't understand is the mosque actually acted in a central place to the poorest of all the poor people and the richest of all rich people in the community. So when you have AC in here, right, or in Karachi or Lahore or Hyderabad, right, in a hot day, that AC is not really serving the 99% of the rich people. Guess who it is serving? Who comes to the mosque for most part? Most commoners are poor people, right? Or middle class, maybe max. Right? I want you to think about the Muslim world. This is obviously America. But those are the people who benefit from these luxuries, right? Luxuries or beautification or comfort, right? When you put a carpet, it's not the rich person who comes and sits there all the time. Who comes into the mosque? Who reads books? Why do you think they had all these books in the mosques? It's the poor people who couldn't afford any of that. Most of the shuyukh were very poor people. And they enjoyed the beauty and serenity. They didn't have that in their houses. But 5 times a day, they had access to all the beautification that they could think of in the worldly terms available to them. And that's why the Muslim leadership or rulers or governors, they made sure that they made the place, the mosque, comfortable. They made sure that their community was represented by a mosque and facilitated things with a mosque that really went out to take care of them. And the highest thing you could do is to obviously cherish the word of God. So I wanted to talk about that because sometimes it misleads people to be very simplistic and think it's a religious duty to be simplistic. Simple is beautiful. Yes, I'm not denying that. But when the intention is missing, when we don't recognize what we're doing, then it's a problem. Okay. So these are some of the examples of what happened to our mosques. Look at the walls, look at the carpets. Look at everything became the same. Simple, plain, blah blah blah. Right. Next one, inshallah. Thank you. And some people attempted, and just because we're lacking so much, these are just examples for us to learn from, inshallah. And I'm not saying I have all the answers or anything like that. I'm just somebody who's struggling with it, just like you. But was maybe perhaps able to pick up these things and talk about them a little bit. So what you're seeing is the ayat written. Most people don't know that when you put a minaret, right? This is a tradition that goes. It actually has to. We were discussing the plans for the expansion with Brother Waqar and Brother Safi and others. It has to be pointed to the crescent and the star has to point towards the Qibla. You just can't put it anywhere that you want, because it was a symbol. When people looked at it from the outside, they said in the neighborhood, "Oh, the Qibla is this way." Right? Somebody walking on the street, it's namaz time, or they wanted to know, or the Qibla is this way. Look at the minaret. You see over there. Maybe the sun wasn't there, or whatever the case was. Right? This is one of the examples of what we found. Right? Their scripts, that khat, right? The styles. Thuluth is the one that's known to go on, like that has to be. If you go into a mosque, Muslim world, right? Because we have very difficult time giving examples in America, you'll see either thuluth or kufik on the walls. Those are the two different styles, right? Kufik is the one that is very rectangular, geometrical, right? You will see that. And then the thuluth is the one that's on the doors of like Khana Kaaba, right? Kaaba Sharif. So something like that over there. That's an example of thuluth, right? Thuluth is the script that is like a very majestic, beautiful script. That's kind of considered, if you know that script, you know all of them. Meaning that it's really hard to master. So those were the two. You wouldn't put nastaliq for most part, or naskh, right? Those are the two scripts that are used for mostly reading the Quran, because they're very simple, and the idea behind them is just be able to read the mushaf, right? And you wouldn't put them on the walls, right? Those are not the two things that go together. But here, what you have an example of, just trying to show you that somebody has done that, and what they're doing is they're copying and pasting without recognizing the tradition, without recognizing the art. They're without recognizing what is happening, and most people are not aware of it, right? So that's something I want to talk about next one, inshallah. And I'll just give one example. I could have given thousands of examples, but I wanted to talk to you, right? Because I know, and we'll have, inshallah, questions answered. I wanted to talk to you, and that's important because you've seen some of the pictures. You know calligraphy. I know that because if you're religiously inclined, you know calligraphy well. You may not be able to decipher these different styles and things like that, but that's okay. We know, we see it in the mosque. This is stone jali work, right? Window at the Sidi Sayyid Mosque in Ahmedabad, India, built in how many years ago? Do you think? It says there, but more than 500 years ago. It's a beautiful mosque. It's a very simple mosque. If you go there, I mean, I haven't been there, but it's a very beautiful mosque. And I wanted to use that as an example. I just want you to think about it. People ask me, and it occurred. I was at a convention, whether it's ISNA or ICNA, and we were talking about Islamic art. And I said to them, and I even think about it. And I said to them, you know what, Muslims, you look at one of the basic element that stands out about our architecture that we're producing in America, mosques and designs and homes and stuff. Obviously there's a prevalent architecture structure wherever Muslims went. So if it was African, the African element would be there. If it was Chinese, the Chinese element would be there, or all these elements would be there. If it's in America, it's going to have a look of the American, right, called theme to it, just like how all the other structures look, pretty much in shape. But what Muslims never did, and I want you to notice that too, and that's why this example is, I think, it's an important example. Muslims never put out rectangular or square windows on their mosques. And I'm just giving you a generalization, obviously. There are obviously exceptions. But I want you to think of any of the mosques that you have been to, right? Great mosque in the Muslim world, right? Or even small masajid, right? They never put out square or rectangular things. Kaaba is the only thing that I know that is cubical, kind of like that, right? Obviously, because of the structure itself. But they didn't do that. How are the pillars and arches in the, right? How are the windows in the Muslim world? In the mosques I'm talking about. They're always arching, right? They're always pointing in that direction, right? Have you ever noticed that? They usually don't have this stuff. And there was always a spiritual meaning behind all of this stuff, which has been lost, for most Muslims, like 99.999%. And where did I learn from this stuff that I'm talking to you about? Where do you think I learned from this? And, in motifs and like the floral patterns that you have, right? And the floral patterns there were three simple elements, and I want to talk about that. Three simple elements that you would find in Islamic art, whether it's the art of books, meaning the Quran, writing, or architecture, buildings, or anything that they were always three simple elements that they included. One was calligraphy. The second was floral patterns, right? Flowers, vegetation, vegetative, Islami, what's called in Turkish. And then the third one was, what could you say? What was the third one? Arches, but in particular, what arch indicates? Geometrical patterns. Right, the patterns that you see going along, these were the three. So the geometrical patterns you see, there's a reason why it just kind of comes in there somewhere. And these were the three. And who's talking about this? And he says, all of them had a meaning behind them. For example, you would find a lot, and I want you to, how many people can recognize tulips? If you see a tulip flower. You could see a couple, right? Ladies are good at it, right? But what's particular about that flower? How many flowers does it have on a stem? Just one. And you would see that in the Muslim architect, that throughout you will see. Just notice that if you would see tulips, right? And you say, why is it there? Just one flower. You know what it represented? The spiritual meaning, the meaning behind all these things, right? The meaning was simple. It called you and to look into, think of Tawheed. Allah is one. And when they put the flower there, they wanted to beautify. Obviously you couldn't put, represent God. But the meaning of it was to remind you of Tawheed. You know why they put the geometrical patterns there? All these structures, right? Continuous, perfection of angles and all these things. Because it represented a universe that was created by God that was perfect. God's creation was perfect. It reminded you of that. That was the meaning. And there's more to it. I'm just giving you a general meaning. Right? Calligraphy. Why was it there? Obviously, we understand what's the meaning if you are able to read. And Michael Barry, the professor from Princeton University, he's an Islamic art professor there, Dr. Michael Barry. he spoke about it. He says one of the most misunderstood art in the world today is Islamic art. And he said, not just because I teach that art, because most people of that culture, he didn't say that in that way, but I kind of understood it, was that most people who inherited that culture and art don't understand anything about their own culture, about their own legacy. They don't understand. So to them, it's just a waste of money and waste of time, right? You see? And so if we see it as waste of time and money, our children cannot inherit from us. They can't. They're not going to find pride in Islamic art. Why? Because waste of time and waste of money. Right? Allah will not question you about these things on the Day of Judgment, which is a very wrong mindset to say. Because God says, whatever you do, right? What did the Prophet say about ihsan? Even if you sacrifice, you do it with ihsan, with excellence. One of the 40 common basic 40 hadiths of Imam Nawawi's work, right? You do it with excellence, everything you do. And the Prophet's role wasn't to teach us art, right? And most religious people forget that. The Prophet's role was not to teach us art. Therefore, he didn't work that role. He wasn't there to teach us poetry. So therefore, he didn't establish that role. His work wasn't to show us how to tailor our clothes. He didn't show us that field. The Prophet's work wasn't to develop architecture and be busy with that. He was focused on something else. His work was to share the message. He was a messenger. Message of God, messenger delivers. He lives that message. And he showed how to live, beautiful character. He showed us how to live. All the things are the beautiful things that are halal he enjoyed. He enjoyed the best of clothes, garments, best of beasts, right? Animals, right? His qaswa was known as the fastest, one of the most desired camel. His horses, right? And he also rode on donkeys, because he wanted to show that he lived off of dates and water, because most people could follow him in that sunnah. So he didn't say eating camel meat is a sunnah, right? Although you could say that, but he knew that his ummah wouldn't be able to enjoy it. So he was a person of very humble, right, state, right, towards God, obviously. So that was his role. His role was to deliver the message. And I think Muslims, right, modern Muslims, that wasn't the earlier examples. Modern Muslims confuse it to just get rid of everything. And let's get back to making things simple. And so we have to understand that the role of the messenger, why he was there, and when we talk about these sunnahs and examples, he wouldn't plaster his house because he was focused on the task that he was given. Imagine the task of risala. You will be asked about it. I mean, there are numerous examples of where the Prophet is crying, simply saying, I am going to be asked about this. I am going to be asked about this. So he was focused on what? The primary duty. That's not our duty. I mean, our duty is to be shuhada ala nas, obviously. Yes, we should be careful about that. But we live our lives too. We're human beings, and God didn't tell us not to be humans. Right? To be human is to produce culture. To be human is to produce art. Right? To be human is to beautify things from this life and inshallah have beautiful. Because that is one of the reasons why if you look at the simple meaning of hasanat and sayyi'at, hasanat are good character, goods, right? That you do, and so it's beautiful action. That's what it means. And sayyi'at is putrid, something that is bad, foul. You don't want to do these things because they smell. You don't want to look at these things because they look qabih, right? Ugly, right? They're not good things. So recognize that, and that's how Islam was built. I just want to show you that example. And 500 years ago, they didn't build these rectangular or square windows. And look at the pattern and the work that's done on this jelly, right? It's just beautiful. It's mind-boggling. Somebody actually sat there for maybe a month or two, right? They didn't just stamp it on a factory thing and they say, oh, let's put it on the wall, right? Because it was from the heart. Do you think it's not from the heart? I mean, I'm not doubting the other factory stuff is not from the heart. I mean, I'm not saying that. But if somebody sat there for a month and he just perfected it, excelled at it, you think it's from the heart? You think he had to work hard? You think there was an intention? You think he was trying to beautify something? You get the message here, right? So I think that's the word that I want to mention. This is at night times. So when you're inside the, go back, yeah. So when you're inside the mosque, when it's shaded inside, not nighttime, in the afternoon again, but that's what you look from inside to outside. There was always this element of beauty. Okay, let's go to the next one. So we talked about the. So I mentioned all these problems, and like in a couple of minutes, I'll talk about the solutions. Right? Start the conversation on Islamic art. Start educating our children. Art is important. Change mosque and home decor culture. We have to do that. We just can't pass it on like this to other people. Look for meaning in art. Okay, and then that's one of the basic of Islamic art. Islamic art is not abstract art with that idea of the Western art. Right? Western art, it went in a total off the tangent. What happened with art, modern art especially, is, and this is obviously my interpretation, is that they wanted to create new things and new elements, and they stopped recognizing aesthetics as one of the pillars of their art form. Right? They just wanted to create new things, new world, new design, new mediums, new things that would kind of shock the people or put them in awe, or maybe not even, there's no message behind this sometimes. Why? Because even the artist himself is not sure what he's talking about. Right? There's just stuff that's thrown out there. You decide what's there. You decide, right? And they said art is subjective. This is what they say, art is subjective. But, with 5 pillars of Islamic art, and I'll mention those 5 pillars too. Art is not subjective, and yes, art is subjective to a certain limit, and then there's a thing that is universal within all of us, that we recognize the beauty. Right? One of the main things that the Muslims produced, that art was beautiful. Right? If you walked into the mosque, you didn't say why these paint colors are, no, they were beautiful. You recognize, and that's what they worked on. Common element where everybody would recognize the beauty of it. The Muslims, the art that they produced, it was brilliant. You just saw a brilliant example of the jali, right? The window, right? You walk inside and then you look from inside. It just brought you to this, wow, how did this person thought of that idea? So art wasn't just like, just put it on, it's good enough, right? So and it was a bequest. It was something that they recognized that 500 years down the road, people will still use the mosque. So make sure whatever we built that such that it would, 1, last for that long, and 2, it would be appreciated by people, because my son, my daughters, my children, they're going to look at this and they're going to say, Dada so-and-so or Nana so-and-so or Ammu so-and-so built that. Or it was that time that these people were involved building the mosque. So they weren't like, let's just put it on and get done with it. Think about it. The natives, certain tribes, they would think about what would happen 7 generations down the road, the implications of their own decisions, community decisions. So they thought about these things. So all these are the things that I talked about, and so we should encourage people to look for meaning in art, look for meaning, and change that culture and mentality of thinking art is waste. And we're trying to do our part, with I've actually opened up an art studio, Faraz Khan Art Studio in Princeton downtown, and I'm dealing with a lot of non-Muslims, which is great. We're dealing with teaching people how to do calligraphy. I have a few things that are secular in nature, obviously, meaning no religious meaning involved, because you have to be careful when you represent the Word of God and how do you do it. So, but it's basic stuff is calligraphy, design, and all these other elements. So we're trying to teach people. We're trying to go to Islamic schools and also consult with people, maybe guide their curriculum and things like that. Teaching different types of calligraphy, just teaching people how to recognize the 6 different scripts that are called the standard scripts. If you know this, within 1 hour, I've taught I mean, 90% of the people, if I just take a 1 hour lecture about 6 styles of art, sulus, divani, raqa, nastalik, nasq, which one I didn't mention, nastalik, divani, kufik, nasq. I think that's all right. Anyway, so if I didn't mention that, I mean, if I just went over a lecture, 90%, this is my experience, 90% of people would know what are the 6 standard styles of Arabic calligraphy. Very simple. You simply look at those pictures, you say, alif is written, and this is the beauty of it. All of these scripts, alif is written differently. Have you ever paid attention to that? Alif is written differently. The length of alif is different. The width of alif is different in all 6 different scripts. And, obviously we need to catch up. But so these are some of the things that we're doing. Next slide. I don't know if I have anything. So this is one of the work that we did at Reading Mosque. This is 15 feet by 8 feet. The woodwork, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. This is Sulus script. Next one. This is at NBIC. This was one of my very first work. It was a very simple Maghrabi script. Allah, the word. And then, hold on. And then, go back. I'm ending in a couple of minutes, inshallah. So, we wanted to make sure that God is watching, and this is not about somebody. I just wanted to point it out. God is watching you, so we put a camera right in the middle of the word Allah. So you kind of got the idea, right? So God is watching. No, the camera was there before, so. Next one. This is NIA, Newark Islamic, how did it go? New Islamic Association? Newark Islamic. Yeah, I am forgetting. But we did the work. Somebody else designed the thing. Beautiful mosque. They have you look at the doorway. I mean, it's straight from the Muslim world, right? Fez, Morocco. But a very beautiful design. Next one. So 5 pillars of Islamic art. I talked to you all about them, but if you want to write them down or take a picture of the slide, they start with Bismillah. Everything that you do, Muslims do, Bismillah. Okay. Number 2, beauty. Most important. It's not abstract art. You have to see the beauty in it. 3rd, balance. That's where you enjoy calligraphy. All alifs are written differently, and all of them are based on a ratio and proportion, a balanced thing that is indicated by either circles or the placement of dots from your pen, calligraphy pen. Right? So balance is very, very important in Islamic art. You wouldn't see Islamic art where, like if it's like the 2 windows, right? If it's on the top of the 2 windows, you wouldn't see the right side like jam-packed with a lot of words, and left side would be a little lighter, like it's tilting. You wouldn't see that ever. Okay. I mean, there are obviously exceptions, but you would always see it as like a balanced way of looking at brilliance. We talked about the Indian mosque, right? The window, and bequest, passing it on to the next generation. Okay, so these are the things. Like look at the Dome of Rock. Look at Granada. Look at even Taj Mahal. Look at it, how beautiful it is, right? How they pass it on to the next generation. Look at all these things, and one of the things that most people don't know, maybe outside of India, right? What's the Quranic chapter, or what is actually, I should have asked, what is written on the Taj Mahal, adorned with it? It's one of the rarest, like, beautiful form, and nowhere else in the world you would see that calligraphy. It's the writing of Surah Yasin. And if you look at it, the way the calligrapher wrote it, he put it in such a beautiful way where, although the height of certain posts or walls, or right, it's very huge, but certain areas it wasn't really, really high. So what he did was he made the script go smaller and smaller. So just like how you read it here, that it's from large to small, it goes this way. You also read it large to small, up high. See? So he made it basically fixing it for the eyes. For every piece that he created, he didn't simply say, let's just knock it down and do the calligraphy. He made it large and smaller, and he knew exactly where it was going to go, the height and how the people are going to see it, and he made sure that all of it was same. All of it was same. So if I looked at that minaret or whatever higher structure, and then I looked at it here, it kind of raised up. If I don't know if I could explain this in a better term, but the measurement was done as such that it didn't seem like this is off and this is off. It was all beautiful, right? So we have to recognize that these are the 5 pillars of Islamic art. We're teaching art classes on the weekends. We're also going around and giving lectures and all these other good stuff. But I wanted to have the idea, a couple of things that I have, inshallah, and maybe 5 minutes for questions, maybe 2 minutes or 5 minutes if you allow me. I know most people, maybe some people are fasting, so that's a great thing. So these are just some photos from Muslims, non-Muslims, from the art studio, calligraphy styles, classes, some things that we have done. And then this is one of the poetry of Rabia al-Adawiyya, or the Rabia Basri in the Indian context. She wrote about how longing for God, right, and how she has 2 loves, and the love that she desires, and God, obviously in the meaning. And I don't see you and you don't see me, but yet our hearts meet, or in a spiritual meaning. And she's obviously talking about God. And we have this understanding or relation of beauty, right? So she talks about that in a poetry in a few words. So that's one. Now the other thing that I want to show you, and this is obviously, I wanted to keep it secular for some of the non-Muslims. There is obviously religious elements in certain other, and obviously the meaning is there with, you could connect it with the spiritual meaning. I wanted to show you these couple of other items that are going to be on the exhibition. If I could pass some cards. So we have, if you look at it, the website is farazkhanartstudio.com, and if you give it out to people, or I'll leave it up to you. So farazkhanartstudio.com, there's no charge. There's an exhibition that I'm doing, alhamdulillah. The Arts Council of Princeton is sponsoring. I've been their resident artist for the last 6 months, working on a lot of the art. And these are some of the things that we're going to showcase. So it's free of charge for a month of October. Bring your children, bring your families there, and look at what we have produced. It's called The Making of an American Script, which is the last item on the card. The Making of an American Script. We're turning Arabic into an American script in an American household. What would it look like? So we got all these paintings made of Arabic calligraphy, and then we have household items like chaika cup, or things like that, with a football with calligraphy, sofa set with calligraphy, benches with calligraphy on top of them, and things like that. Printer and laptops with calligraphy, what would they look like in an American household? So I wanted to just, if you could come up maybe and see this. This is just a simple element. There are just 2 things. And this is not something, how many years old is this? A week old. And if you're able to read Urdu, it simply says, and I'll explain, Chai ho ya kahwa, bas zindagi ho baba. Right? So if whether it's tea or coffee, the life has to be really enjoyable. Right? Give me tea or coffee, but make sure that I enjoy my life. So this is the same thing repeated over here again. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to contemporary, get into the mainstream. Our children should be creating this. Our families should be creating this. When we drink something, it shouldn't say, Home Depot on top of their cups, right? Or the greatest boss or something like that, which is like the foulest thing that you want to think of, right? The greatest boss. Or maybe it's the best thing. But the idea that, this is how you teach culture. This is how you teach tradition. And, my family enjoys it, and, everybody else too. And it's a simple stuff. It's not, it doesn't take like earth-shattering 100 years of calligraphy designs and elements. One more thing that I want to show you. And thank you so much for your patience. Really, jazakallah khair. This is same idea, but this is on black, gold, and silver. This is now this is Arabic calligraphy, or Arabic. The earlier one was Urdu, right? So, and you could come up and look at it too. I'll pass it around too. Just don't try to scratch it. That's all. And it's also the same statements is mentioned here. خلف الصبر أشياء جميلة تنتظر, right? So this is a eating bowls, right, and plates. So behind, and there's a way of saying it in American English too. Beautiful things wait for those who are patient. So if you're sitting on a table waiting, you're teaching your children, beautiful things wait for those who are patient. Meal's coming, but here's a lesson that is given to you just before the meal and every meal. So it's here too. So just be patient. You know, sometimes we also need to know this. So these are some of the reminders. And this, I'm not somebody who invented these ideas. Muslims have done this for thousands of years. There are plates that are in New York Metropolitan Museum. You see beautiful statements just telling them, you know, say Bismillah, Barakatullah, the blessings would be there and things like that. I'll end this here, and you have my cards if you need to contact me. I'll be here. Any questions that maybe one or two, and that's it. And I'll keep my response to 30 seconds.
Any questions?
Jazakallah khair. This is very important too. When we have to look into the hadith, right? If don't beautify mosque in particular, what book is it coming from? Is it Hasan, Sahih, Daif? That's one, right? Number two, what is the context of don't beautify mosque? Because Uthman radiallahu anh, right? He allowed people to do calligraphy on the walls, right? So what does it mean, beautify? Beautify has, right? Is the Prophet saying in a meaning, don't create structures, right, that you're wasting things, and therefore it's taken because one of the Sahabi, he actually brought light at nighttime to the Prophet's mosque. I'm forgetting his name. There's only one hadith by him in Sahihain, the two books of Sahih. But he's one Sahabi who brought in, the Prophet ﷺ praised him because he lit the mosque, right? It was functional. It was beautiful, obviously. And he did not like the people when they obviously wasted, right? So that's one thing that I would look into too. The third thing I mentioned, and more importantly, is how we understand our deen. Is we don't take one simple hadith or one statement and apply it to religion or our lives. The way we function as Muslim is that we take all of the hadith and all of the ayat on that particular topic, because there could be, it's not that the hadith is saying something wrong, but we're going to understand something wrong, right? So we have to have context to understand from all of the ayat and hadith that talk about, in particular, about this topic, and then we understand the topic, right? And that's how we understand the prayers, right? We don't say prayer is reciting Al-Fatiha. If you just simply say, oh, if I recite Al-Fatiha, my prayer is finished, the salah. No, there's more to it. There's ruku, there's sujood, but you'll find all these little, so we got to put the whole together. And that's why it's important that we look at all of them. One of the reason why I mentioned the قُلْ مَنْ حَرَّمَ زِينَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي, the ayah, right, that it stands again. And all of the Quran, if you look at it, it doesn't say don't beautify. Right, there are many haram that are mentioned, but all of the harams that are mentioned in the Quran are, first of all, universal harams, meaning everybody recognizes them as bad, right? Alcohol is bad, people recognize. Drugs are bad, gambling is bad. This is universal. I mean, it's how much, obviously, people kind of go back and forth. Lying and cheating and backbiting and all these things are universally accepted things. So I think those are the few things that we should recognize. But that's a very good, important. Dr. Abu Zayd also mentioned. He mentioned that look into those things too when you talk about it. Jazakallah.
Any other questions?
So I'm very happy how, inshallah, going to the mainstream with such a work. This is amazing. Something that I can't think of. So I love this, and I'm very happy to hear that you're also on the committee. It sounds like you're the construction and working with. Working together, it's also great, and hopefully, inshallah, more mosques can benefit from that work. And for using something like this, and you could tell the knowledge that I have on this area, how expensive is it? I know made in China, really good, really cheap. Right? So if they actually sit down and do this, will it become for the luxury homes, or it's affordable?
Sure. So the question is, if I understand it, Business-wise, how well-to-do will it be? Is that where you're going with it, or you're just simply asking me?
Or how can you just
Profitable.
No, because it becomes a luxury item.
Got it. So, no.
So it's like you're supposed to have the decorated
Oh, I
house,
see.
but it's like going over.
Gotcha. So there's you buy stuff from $1, right? And then I'm just giving an example, right? So you buy plates and stuff, and then say, oh, that's great. You could use it, and you don't have to spend thousands of dollars, right? And then there's somebody gets it for thousands of dollars, right? Obviously, and so it becomes like a luxurious item. Is that where we're going with it?
No, just how much is it?
Okay. So this thing right there is, guess how much it is? Anybody? $29.99. Any other takers? If you get the price right, then you can take it home. This is actually $1. So,
No way.
so what I want to indicate to you is this: it's what you make of things. It's how you perceive things, right? This is also made in China. I just wrote it with my hand, calligraphy on top of it, right? But the lesson learned is, either create blah, what we talked about, or beautify. And that's what we want our kids to do and our families to do. When they wear clothes, right, when you walk into a mosque, the reason why the Prophet ﷺ praised wearing amama, right, or praised wearing white garments, and it's not there's something in it that, no, it's how you look wearing it in that culture, in that context, right? When you bury your people, wear this type of, why? Because there was a context there. And so look your best. Some people just get caught up in putting the amama on, right? And that's all they see. But look your best, and that's, the larger universal message gets lost. And so I think we have to recognize that. So I think great question. Just $1. But not for sale.
Maybe it's something that we can
Sure.
as gifts.
Yeah.
They price are very reasonable that we can stock.
Oh, this is something I've done. So this is not for sale in the marketplace for now. But you'll find there's an artist in the West, in Washington, Sakal, Muhammad Sakal. He's also Syrian, I think. He's also doing it, and he sells stuff online too. My stuff is online too, that I sell through Fine Art America. The card has a website, and you could get the you don't have to buy the original because the original has to be expensive, but you get like a similar printed version as well, so which is not as expensive.
So after your classes, kids would be able to do something like this?
Yeah, it depends which class that they take, but yes, the calligraphy is there.
It's a good investment.
Inshallah. Let's make dua, inshallah. Any other question, the important question that I didn't? Okay, let's make dua. Jazakallah khair. Thank you for listening. And you don't have to agree with anything or everything I said. This is just an idea. This is not a religious truth or understanding. This is my understanding of the world. So you're more than...
I just want to say, if people remember 2-3 weeks ago, Dr. Islam al-Zulumi came, and he talked about the whole wrestler who challenged the Prophet Muhammad, and I think his name was Burhan, and then he challenged the Prophet and the Prophet beat him 3 times. And then just because of the fact the Prophet beat him 3 times, he took Shahada. There was no Hadith or Quran or anything like that. He took Shahada because of that. So I think going back to this, art is something that unfortunately a lot of us are not able to appreciate, but I'm sure outside cultures, people, when they're taking your classes, they're able to see another aspect of, or they're able to see Islam through a different lens. And I think there's a lot of value in it, and I think we should encourage our kids to participate. Maybe our kids have this internal, artist in them, so they can really benefit, and it could be like you mentioned, a good way to infuse into the culture.
Well said, جزاك الله خير. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. اللهم أعنا على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. وصلى اللهم وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Thank you so much for listening.
Brother Faraz again. I'll be bringing up the donuts and bagels. Don't forget to